What's up, Nerdferders? Hope you're all doing well out there today. So finally I'm going to get into talking about The Last Jedi in a little bit more detail, and why, for me personally, The Last Jedi fails as a whole. And I don't want to do these as structured videos. I'm just going to kind of ramble on here, and I don't want to make these super long either. So I'm probably going to do these in a couple of different parts and just kind of talk and just go off the cusp with things, because I don't want to just do this huge structured out video that's going to be 45 minutes long or an hour of all these slip edits and everything. I just kind of want to talk and be raw and let things kind of come to mind as they're coming about here, and just be open and honest, and let this just be a very honest discussion about stuff. I've got some things, of course, that I want to talk about, but I'm sure that things are going to come up. So I'm just going to ramble on and try to keep these maybe to like 10 minutes or under. And we'll just call this part one with everything. And this is not to change anybody's perception on The Last Jedi at all. This is just where I'm coming from. And, you know, there are great things in the movie. There are things I like, and I will talk about those things as well, I'm sure, as these conversations continue with stuff. But I got to dive into the things that bothered me and why, as a whole, this movie fails for me. So, quick recap. You can go back. You can watch my first two videos, probably like a week or two ago, that I put up, just getting you up to speed where I am. Cliff notes on that. Saw The Last Jedi 3 times in the theater. First time I saw it was super uneasy, probably the most uneasiest I've ever felt walking out of a movie theater. The second time, I kind of fell in love with it for a short period there, because I was looking at it as a film and not a Star Wars film in particular. Third time, started to kind of slip through the cracks with things, and once it came out, I've had a lot of time to digest and rewatch and analyze this as being just like a Star Wars fan. There's just so much about this movie that I despise. So I'm going to jump right into this here, and I just want to start with the opening crawl. Everything in the crawl seems fine, but that first line in there that says "The First Order reigns," something about that bothers me, because at the end of The Force Awakens, you know, we recap with taking out Starkiller Base. Obviously, everybody is in despair. General Hux is freaking the fuck out. You know, Snoke kind of drops in and says, go get Kylo Ren, bring him back, it's time to complete his training. All of that sequence right there is kind of telling me we underestimated what the Resistance can do. We obviously have this other power in the Force in this girl, Rey. We need to reevaluate our situation a little bit and better be prepared. I'm not expecting Starkiller Base to completely end the First Order, but there should have felt like there was a little bit of a dent made to that. And that's a big issue with this movie, for sure. You kick into The Last Jedi, and they're just like, the First Order reigns. Well, this is hours, a day, I mean minutes after The Force Awakens has ended, and already the First Order is back with more intense artillery to go ahead and take out the Resistance base, and everyone's fleeing out. If there was such an urgency to take the Resistance out, and they had all these other dreadnoughts and things and different Star Destroyers are ready to go, when the Resistance attacked your base on Starkiller, wouldn't you just send all of them knowing that it's unprotected now? You know, preparing and planning. I got this big truck going by now. Wouldn't you prepare and plan for that, though, if you're this giant powerhouse? There's a possibility that these people might take out your big Starkiller base. So while everybody is focused on attacking your base, wouldn't you send the Dreadnought and the Star Destroyers over to the Resistance base and wipe them out? That way you are ensuring that it's getting done. That was troublesome to me. That kind of bothers me, because it erases the huge accomplishment that the Resistance had in taking down Starkiller Base. It just wipes it off. There was no impact of that happening at all. It's a little bit of a bummer. So I have issue with that. And, of course, when we flash forward towards the end of the movie here, when we get down to Crate and everything, it's the same situation, you know? Holdo does the kamikaze, you know, light speed right into the Super Star Destroyer, or the flagship, you know, Snoke's ship, takes everybody out, and there's still no dent. They still have enough to, like, drop everything down on Crate and still be this giant powerhouse. It's like, no matter what's happening, there's no dent made to them. I have issue with that, man. Like, it doesn't make the First Order look vulnerable. It doesn't make the First Order look scary or imposing, because all they are is just a fleet of ships that just keeps coming at you, and they're comical characters. If you look at these characters back in the original trilogy with everything, it felt like this was an organization of people that had their shit together and they were in control of their situation. It doesn't feel like that with the First Order. It feels like a circus show of things. The only person that seemed compelling enough to feel like Imperial-ish. I don't even know the character's name, but in the beginning of The Last Jedi, he was the guy, I don't know if he was on the Dreadnought or the one, but he was the slick back hair, the older guy. He had like that Imperial way about him. I was like, this is what we need to see from the First Order. You know, someone in charge, someone that gets it, someone that's, you know, commanding orders and everything. But it's just kind of a bummer because it makes it all for nothing in the end. You know, the Resistance, in theory, has been whooping the First Order's ass for 2 full movies here. I mean, the First Order really hasn't shown anything. They haven't shown anything. All they've done is caught a ship that they tracked through Lightspeed that was running out of fuel, and they were just picking people off little by little, little by little. So it's just, the First Order for these movies just isn't imposing. And it's a bummer because I feel that The Force Awakens set things up really good to move forward. Even though a lot of people want to call it a soft reboot, that's fine. I'm not going to argue against that. They played it safe. I get it. I have no issue with that because taking The Force Awakens without The Last Jedi, it was a good story. It was compelling characters. And it brought us back to the galaxy far, far away and got everybody together. And that's what you needed. I think you needed to play it safe just to get everybody on board and attached to new characters and bringing back in your legacy characters and get us excited for what was to come. And it's just in The Last Jedi, every single thing that was left by JJ was entirely thrown out the window. And I know, you know, Rian Johnson just all subverting expectations and all this. Bullshit, man. I'm calling bullshit on that. I think there was almost a method to the writing of this film where it was to just disacknowledge every single thing that was set up in The Force Awakens. And it goes down to the tiniest of details with this. Going back to the beginning of The Last Jedi. All right? Starkiller Base is blown up. Very shortly after, we're going to send everybody now to the Resistance base to take care of business. There's dialogue at the end of The Force Awakens from Snoke to Hux that says, "Get Kylo Ren, bring him to me, it's time to complete his training." That doesn't sound like, let's go get the fleet together and send them. That should have been the dialogue there. Hux, we've got the Dreadnought, we've got, you know, all these Star Destroyers, get to the Resistance base and take them out once and for all. And then bring Kylo Ren, or something along those lines. There wasn't even a dialogue alluding to any of this. That's why it makes no sense how The Last Jedi starts off. This should have been like, again, a regrouping of things, getting things back together, and we should have been able to have seen either some dark side Sith training, something along those lines. There should have been at least a little bit of a time gap. Or if you want to start the movie immediately after the events of The Force Awakens, we don't have to start it off with this big, bloated action scene. Start it off with where Kylo Ren is and Snoke and where Rey is with Luke. There should have been at least in this movie, started minutes after The Force Awakens, but let it draw out over a couple of months or a year or whatever the case might be to build these characters. Build these characters more. Let's see this relationship with how Snoke has this hold on Kylo. Let's see what's going to happen when Luke is training Rey. It's total bullshit, man, how they set this whole thing up, because the way that The Force Awakens ends is you're anticipating to see some form of training, you know, dark side, light side, and it was really set up beautifully for that. But somehow Kylo Ren, who obviously got bested by Rey, and Snoke realizes this and knows that they need to reevaluate things because he's got to get Kylo ready to counterbalance this awakening in Rey as the light side, which is meeting the dark side. That's the big thing in this, is balancing things out. You know, between all of that and setting everything up for these trainings, Kylo Ren instead has the power to defeat Snoke. And that doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up. There should have been a period of time stretching this out where Kylo learns how to set Snoke up and defeat Snoke like that. Snoke is like the big baddie. I'm okay with Snoke being killed. There's no problem with that. I'm okay with that. The issue that I take up with Snoke being killed, though, is the fact that Kylo needed to complete his training. That's what Snoke said. Basically, like, we're not ready. We need to make sure that we're prepared, and we got to, like, here, let's go. Time to up the ante. Let's rock and roll. But within a couple of days of that, all of a sudden, Kylo Ren can now best Snoke. That doesn't make sense, man. Maybe 6 months down the road, or a year, a couple years down the road, you know, maybe then, when we see that Kylo Ren is advanced and he's built up, as a character for us to watch, but then also built up with his knowledge of the dark side and his powers and stuff, that he can pull that off. All right. The fact that that happened within days after and there was zero sense of training doesn't make sense. And it also doesn't add up with Snoke's dialogue to that whole thing either. He's kind of giving Kylo shit in the beginning of the movie. Just take your ridiculous mask off. I thought you were going to be the next Darth Vader. And antagonizing him and really just kind of like giving him shit for everything. And then shortly after that, when Rey shows up, all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, like, you're ready now, Kylo. Where there was light, like, I sense total darkness in you, and, strike down your true enemy. There was nothing that happened. How do we go from saying, bring Kylo Ren to me to complete his training, to, yep, you're ready to rock and roll? There was nothing that had happened. And we should have got some of that, and this should have been drawn out. The events between The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, how much time is spanned between these movies? The Force Awakens takes place in what? Maybe a couple days? And The Last Jedi, it could be a week, 5 days, something like that. So we're at best a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks tops is the time between these two movies in this timeline. And that's enough time, I guess, to believe that Kylo Ren has become the master to best Snoke, and Rey's become the master to be Kylo's equal, and and obviously, lift all these rocks to rescue the Resistance. We're supposed to buy into that. I have no problem with like overpowered characters and everything, but you got to give us something to buy into that. You can't just throw that on a screen. All right, like 2 days ago, before Rey's lifting all these rocks, she's showing up on Luke's doorstep saying, I don't know what's going on with me. I need help. And like, now you've got to figure it out? Come on, man. Come on. It doesn't make sense. So I'm going to wrap it up here because we're getting close to, about 12 minutes right now. I'm going to continue with this, though, because there's a lot about this movie that needs to be discussed further, and I'm sure a lot of these points have been touched on by other people, but I'm going to share my thoughts with this stuff because I love Star Wars so much, man, and like, it bums me out that some of these things stick out like that. There's problems in so many movies. So many movies have problems, but when the movie is that good and that compelling and drags you along for the ride, it's easy to look past some stuff. And I feel The Last Jedi's got all these things that I consider to be completely inexcusable. So that's going to be part one to this. I will be back maybe in a couple days or so. Maybe do this every couple days, but I will be back for sure to talk more about The Last Jedi. If you guys are new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all the support. I would love to know any of your thoughts. If you guys want to comment on anything I'm talking about in here, just anything with The Last Jedi in general, please, the hell am I trying to say? Start the discussion down below. We'll continue this. And more videos on the way, of course, guys. So thank you very much for watching. Catch you all next time.